Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for March 7th, 2025. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating. And also here are Christina Chumias, Ralph Kohler, and Simo Hell. Christina, I didn't notice that you had joined us. Do you have something you'd like to discuss?
I was expecting to discuss what we said in Florida about the information architecture. I'm not sure if you were ready for this or you were expecting to discuss something else.
Um, well, I'm happy to discuss it. If you or Laurie would like to lead the discussion, tell us, where we go. And there's also an issue that we've been discussing for a while that we'd like to wrap up. We have just a couple of more things to look at, but we could always do that next week. So do you want to talk about the uh, navigation admin architecture?
Yeah, so Lauri's not going to come. He has a meeting. He got a meeting scheduled at the same time. So basically, the idea of what we said in the when we discussed this in Florida Drupal as context for everybody, it's that now that Experience Builder is going to like completely change the admin UI, it's going to need it's opening the door to discuss bigger changes and pulling the notes. So one of the big pain points that we've seen is that users need to basically jump into several sections to accomplish one task related to contents. For example, if they want to do anything related to a specific content type, they have to go structure and then content type. In order to, if they are creating a content type, they are going to structure content type, they create a content type or edit an existing content type. For this purpose is exactly the same. And if they actually want to see, because if you go into manage form display, you want to see how the form that you're creating looks like. You actually have to go into content, create content, and choose this item. But if you actually want to change things like meta tags, path auto, translation, then you have to go into configuration. So for exactly the same task, which is configuring a single content type, you have to go through 3 different main sections from the information architecture. That's the single starting point, or the problem that this is actually the problem that we would like to try to solve.
Okay, so
So
Christina, before you go on, I just want to, for the sake of the recording, point out that Aaron McHale and Thomas Howell have joined us. Hi. We're talking about the navigation menu, or more generally, how to navigate in the admin interface. And Christina's talking about some thoughts they've been having, especially with the coming of Experience Builder. Christina, go ahead.
then Laurie mentioned that Experience Builder is adding some additional information architecture to this convoluted journey, like this complex journey. And the thing is that, so the goal is, so the content types and templates and the content can be created within Experience Builder when Experience Builder is out there. So that's even creating more complexity because you really have like something that you are seeing with Experience Builder. So the whole thing needs to be resynced, and that actually has consequences. For example, if you choose which menus. If you want to create menus, you go to structure menus. But if you want to go to taxonomy and you want to actually add taxonomy, you also have to go to structure. When when a lot of times taxonomy is actually content or part of content. So which parts of the menus, which parts of the taxonomy are in content or structure, and is this differentiation between them really necessary? So that's the whole question to solve, and we don't have an answer. The thing is that it would be great. So a normal process for this would be basically trying to make a proposal, test the proposal, and then decide based on the tests, or come up with several proposals and see which of them makes more sense for users. And the idea is that what it was discussed at Florida Drupal Camp that Lauri was saying is that if you could actually come up with a proposal for how this could be changed, obviously it's like a huge amount of time that you will need to or a lot of hours to discuss this, what makes actually sense to come up with this proposal. But that's what the starting point that we would actually need to come up with some tests to test things. Because as you said, Benji, your idea is to discuss things on this meeting, not just go on after that and test things. And that's something that the user testing group, and Emma, in theory, she's going to join uh, at some point, but she's on a meeting that is also running late. And she's actually taking care of the whole user testing part. So that's something that we could take care of. But we would need, we would love to hear if you have any thoughts or you have any proposal. So that's the initial idea. Any questions, thoughts? What do you think?
Go ahead, Ralph.
At first, one question in regard of Experience Builder. At the moment, I only took a brief look so far, but what changes or in what way would Experience Builder change the current state? Do you have some sort of demo or
Yeah.
something like that
No,
available?
I don't have a demo right now. I haven't installed Layout Builder in my local, so I can't show that. That's going to be you will be able to test that in 2 weeks. But I can say to you that Experience Builder changes into main things. The first one is that you can actually go and create content within the Experience Builder mode itself. We could interpret the Experience Builder, or we could see the Experience Builder as you kind of edit into the edit mode, and in there you can do a lot of things. From those things, from the Experience Builder itself, you can jump from one page to another, and you can actually create a new page while you are in there. So that means that you don't necessarily have to go, because when you're inside Experience Builder, you don't have the navigation, the admin navigation in there. You
Yeah.
kind of enter into edit mode or working mode, or you can conceptualize it however you want. But that's the thing. And from there, you can edit whatever you're doing, go to another page, create another page, and you can actually create content type templates, which I think it's kind of a view mode itself.
Okay, but just one question, follow-up question in compared to Layout Builder, there you have basically you're editing either a content type or you create overrides for a specific page of a certain content type. Is it similar for Experience Builder that you start in air quotes in a certain content type, or is it just a blank canvas?
It depends on what you
Uh,
choose. It's
okay,
it's yeah, you shouldn't be in Layout Builder. You shouldn't start understanding that from Layout Builder. There are concepts that are similar, but it works different. The structure
okay,
is different. So,
okay.
but I'm not an expert in Experience Builder here. So just FYI, I'm not the best person. I wish Lauri was here, but I'm not the expert with that. I've just seen designs and demos.
So, I don't want to look at it now, but I've put a link in the chat. And there's a session that Larry gave at Florida Drupal Camps. This was just 2 weeks ago, and you can see the recording there. So that's probably, for now, the most up-to-date demo of Experience Builder that's available. And for the sake of the recording, this is www.fldrapal.camp/session/experience-builder-transforming-its-next-chapter. So I've been meaning to watch that myself. I was at a different session in that time slot. So go ahead, Simo.
Yeah, one thing we've mentioned every once in a while for the past, I don't know how many years, is adding kind of this parallel navigation, so where you can move within the context instead of in the menu structure. So that's something that definitely would be one of the options. So adding, like creating a different like an alternative navigation that's within the admin pages. So that's something worth looking at this time. I think usually we just have said that this is not part of the, like this is out of scope for this issue or something like that, and never got back to it as a whole. So that kind of a additional navigation, like parallel navigation or lateral navigation, how do you call it? And another thing is that I was thinking, came to my mind with Experience Builder when it's more like application style interface. Then one of the things that need to be taken into consideration is how it works with different permissions. So if you have a site with a complex set of permissions, to keeping it so that it's obvious which permissions are, like which actions are allowed in the user's permissions. So it's kind of a clear that what you can do with one user and what you can do with another user. So dividing the like the user interface to different permissions. So that's for a kind of a complex organizations or big organizations, that's something that needs to be done. For smaller ones, it's not so important usually.
So Simo, normally if there's a link you don't have access to, it just doesn't show up in the admin menu. So that link goes away. But I guess what you're suggesting is that instead of just deleting links, we provide a different menu for depending on the role.
So that let's say if you're in doing something with taxonomy, then you have this kind of a another sub navigation where you can move between different parts of taxonomy related things. Like these are the things we talked about when we are moving blocks from one menu to another, and like how to keep that, like how to make it easy to find. So that kind of things. So that kind of the so there would be, instead of like there would be structure menu with all the structure items, and then there would be kind of node menu with all the node items, including structure, including creation, including permissions. I don't know what, but that kind of a, so there would be navigation by kind of technical terms for people who maintain only the technical stuff, and then there would be navigation by kind of the user context. So that's kind of a two alternative ways to navigate.
Sorry.
So this
Finish.
with a traditional interface, but with Experience Builder, I'm thinking like probably everybody uses Jira or something like that. So when you have this kind of a columns where you move stuff, and then you don't have permission to move something from directly from peer review to done, you can only move it to back to needs changes or to QA or something like that. So that kind of a, so that the users might have restrictions on what they can do with drag and drop interfaces. So that's something that will need some thought.
Okay. I want to point out that Emma Harrell has joined us, and there are a couple of things coming up in the chat. So Ralph posted a link to this issue um, related. Zoom isn't cooperating with me. Um,
Okay, so from the yeah, this link about this. So not sure if you've seen the latest demo from Experience Builder, and I assume you have not. But Experience Builder is taking care of this already, so we don't have to propose something else outside Experience Builder, because Experience Builder is going to take over all these parts. So that's not something that we should concern ourselves with. We need to be really focused on trying to solve the problem for the user that has the problem, that is the target user. And the target user is not a developer, or especially not a Drupal developer. The target user is a person that doesn't know Drupal, because the main problem that we have is that Drupal is super complex to understand and to figure out how it works, and to get a sense of where you are. In Drupal, it's super complex, and we need to find workflows that are easy, and people shouldn't need to follow documentation to just learn or accomplish a task, even though they are not Drupal experts. And the problem is that if we assume and define things from the perspective of an expert Drupal user, we're going to miss the point. So that's why it's important in here about to think about not the complex solutions and the long tail or the special solutions, and think which would be the task that 80% of people will try to accomplish when they are landing in Drupal for the first time. Taking into account that part of the interface itself is going to change with Experience Builder. So we need to reflect on the information architecture, the main task that those users are going to try to do.
okay, I still want to catch up with some of the comments that have been made in the chat. So this is the issue that Ralph mentioned, 334498, to improve.
Yes, and that's what I was I was answering to.
Okay, so the managed form display, which we were looking at a few minutes ago, doesn't have an obvious way to distinguish between things in the main section and the sidebar. And in chat, Ralph mentioned the proposed resolution is about to distinguish between what is in the node edit form and what is in the advanced sidebar. Aaron mentioned deep linking, and I'd like to say a little more about that. Emma says hi. So let me just give a few of my thoughts based on the current discussion. So part of what Christina is suggesting is that we sort of invert the structure of the admin menu, and instead of having things related to nodes under various places, structure, content, and configuration, turn it around and have perhaps a primary menu section for nodes, and then underneath that, the various things that are currently under structure, configuration, and content. So that's part of it, and that's certainly something that is worth considering. But also, the hierarchical menu is not the only model to use. We have talked in the past about, as Aaron said, deep linking. So if you are on an admin page to create an article, and you realize that there's a missing field, or something should be moved from the sidebar to the main section, provide a link to the form where you can do that, which is, of course, under structure, and vice versa. If you're editing structure, have a link to go to the edit page. So that's not yet a proposal, but an idea worth exploring. Should we have a standard block that shows related links, that would be a pretty small step in that direction. And of course, there's the popular contrib module, the coffee module. So maybe I should open it up, which says, people don't like hierarchical menus, they like search. So why don't we provide a way to search the admin pages? So that's the coffee module. And Aaron provided a link, and since Zoom is not cooperating with me, 3325034. No. 3325034. Is it not Drupal? Is it some? It's in the ideas queue. So I had the node ID right. Providing additional methods of navigating the admin interface. So that's a pretty broad statement that we're thinking of. Emma, since you joined us in the middle, do you have any questions about what we've been discussing?
Not so much as a question. I do think this requires quite a zoomed out approach. And so I appreciate the individual issues that have been established to look at pieces of this. But when I guess we can make changes to what's there already, but I do think we're talking about taking a fundamental different look at how people try and find their way through stuff that's in the admin interface to get things done. So I'm not sure of the best way of approaching it, but I feel some of the changes we can make in individual pieces of the interface will just scratch the surface. I guess it's a kind of bigger piece.
Right. So
That's all I have.
as I said, we shouldn't feel constrained to the hierarchical menu. We should consider other solutions to navigation.
Yeah, I think trying to look at, like, for me, when people are trying to do stuff in any CMS, the fewer steps they have to go to get those things done, the better. But it's huge, right? So you almost have to break it down into what are the tasks that people are trying to do every single day with Drupal, and how do we, like, maybe we focus on those, but that in itself requires a prioritization piece to know even what those tasks are. Oh, and everyone now has their hand up. Okay. I don't know who is next. I'm going to stop talking.
Actually, Emma, before we go on to them, I understand you're going to be in charge of a user testing group. Is that right? Do you want to say
Yeah.
anything about that?
Like, that's all I have at the moment, Benji. So this is quite new and not yet established. So, but yeah, part of the user testing group will be about establishing the priorities to test. And clearly this is one of them. It's very fundamental. So what we'll seek to do with this group is really get those perspectives that I feel we need to understand where the complexities are, because I think those of us who know Drupal, it's really difficult to understand, to, like, go back and remember what it was like when we first encountered it, because we've learned it over the years. But I feel to move Drupal towards new audiences and people who maybe, might do that learning curve but might not follow it through, I think we need those viewpoints. So that I would hope to recruit two kinds of people into those groups: people who are quite happy to do user testing and are happy to take on that and contribute to the community, but also people who will be participants in testing, and we would aim for people who are not familiar with Drupal, and align that to particular goals of Drupal, I guess, of which, information architecture is a crucial one. But yeah, that's all I have. It's quite new at the moment. We're still working on that, Christina and I. So
Okay, well that's a big initiative, and that's something that has always been frustrating for us because none of us who come to these weekly meetings are in a position to organize that sort of user testing, and it would be great if we could work with you as you do that. But Thomas, go ahead.
Okay. I'm guessing I'm probably going to say some unpopular things, but I just wanted to give voice to them. I agree with a lot of the overarching aims that have been described. However, I worry that this is going to be, because this is so massive an initiative, or so massive the starting of an initiative, that it ignores a fundamental problem, which is we still have language issues. The word Drupal experience or experience builder still is like, I'm in school, I'm working on a group project, and I tried to get the team to use Drupal, and they refused because they did not understand the language that we use, and they said it is too hard to even understand what we're talking about. Like there was, and I feel like we keep on moving the chairs around on the Titanic. Like we're like, oh, if we just put this search, and I recently got employed. They have the search for the admin, and that doesn't work for a lot of the normal users because the people who are new and normal don't know what is possible. So hierarchical is problematic because it hides things. Search is problematic because it assumes a certain comprehension or knowledge level or awareness of what a tool is even capable of doing. And we talk about things in a way that to me often indicates that we think there's one silver bullet. And
Oh,
I,
let me just interrupt for a second
yeah.
because Simo posted in the chat something that goes along with what you just said. He points out that search requires knowing what terms to search for, and he listed some other options, including AI search and page editing, deep linking, and light rendering. But go ahead, Thomas.
Oh yeah, and I think that that's very appropriate in that comment. I just wanted to highlight that, like I feel like we're always like Drupal is a history of chasing the next big thing, and a lot of stuff never feels quite finished. And I still feel very strongly that until we saw in the one survey that we did, and it is a single survey, but we saw that people really struggle to understand the base concepts. And just rearranging or removing or replacing the hierarchical structure is just going to leave a different group behind. And so we run the risk of saying, okay, we're going to just re-architect everything. We're going to drop this whole new thing in. And so I don't know if a more appropriate way to think about it is how can we have different modalities that a builder can choose to go with that modality in interacting with the information architecture, so that if someone is intermediate and they understand enough about the Drupal terminology, they understand enough about the hierarchy, but they don't understand the hierarchy, then they want like AI enabled search, or they want some search that gets them through things, but they know enough to ask the right questions and get to where they want. If someone wants a very simplified version of things, then they want most things hidden, then but these all in the past were distributions. And so I don't know where we're going as a community. I just wanted to caution that if we're just looking for the next big thing and we still haven't finished addressing older big things that are incomplete, I think we just introduce more cruft and more confusion.
Okay, you got a thumbs up from Ralph in the middle of that. Let me also just go back to catching up with the chat a little bit. Ralph posted a link to a Google Doc. I'm not going to try to read that for the sake of the recording, but it considered the navigation in various things, Drupal 6, different versions of Drupal 6, Drupal 7 standard and full, and there are a bunch of tabs here. Backdrop, WordPress, Silver Stripe, Craft. Some of these I haven't heard of. So that's some research that Ralph has done into different systems. And yeah, I certainly think that Thomas is saying something that we're all agreeing with, which is that we should not think of tweaking what's there. We should be thinking in these discussions about large-scale changes, totally rethinking how it works, doing the user research, and this is not going to be something that is done in a few meetings. This will be an ongoing project. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. I feel like following Thomas, I agree with like everything he said, and so I feel like what I'm about to say isn't a good follow-on from what Thomas said. However, there, listening to the conversation that's happening, there's a couple things, I have a couple observations that I have that I thought point out. I suppose the first one is when we talk about going back to looking at when we looked at like restructuring the admin UI and all the things that are happening around that, and now, and it's all things that I think we want to do. The challenge is that Drupal isn't Squarespace, it isn't Wix. We have, we can't just say we're going to restructure the admin UI because they've got all these existing sites, all of these contrib modules that alter the admin UI, that alter the navigation, that do things differently, and they've all been built up based on the assumptions of how things are right now. And so I don't have a solution to that, but I think that's something that we have to keep in mind and we have to consider. And we did that somewhat successfully. I say somewhat because I don't have any measures of success with it. But when we restructured the blocks UI, so maybe the answer is not to go, maybe the lesson from that is that that worked because we took one bit and we did one bit at a time. But I'm also mindful of what Thomas was saying, that like we can move things around, restructure things all we want, but fundamentally I think we have to address the terminology, and then we can look at and then we should look at, what is the structure that works, or look at those at the same time. I mean, we're doing some great work in the Drupalisms working group, and so I think that's really important work that needs to continue. And I suppose the other thing around that, that is in my head. And actually, I don't remember what I was going to say next. So I'm going to pause and let someone else come in, and then I'll pick up if I remember what it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I would like to close the discussion here. I'm not sure if somebody else wants to add something, but I would like to drive back the discussion to the initial point, if that's okay for the rest of the group, or you want to share any other opinion.
Let me just ask Ralph, do you want to say what you put in the chat?
Yeah, I could briefly, and I've sent you a screenshot, Benji, for the video that others can also see. So I'm unable to share a screenshot in chat, I suppose. Therefore, I've sent.
Did you send it in Slack?
In Slack, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll find the link.
And the point is simply, I'm in line what Thomas and Aaron said, and yeah, that brings me back to a point I've suggested in the context of Drupalisms already a while ago, is an approach that is proposed in the UX Magic book. It's basically unifying the grammar a system's using to have clear objects and concepts, and getting and in the screenshot I've sent Benji, you see basically the underlying basic approach is going from a sparse matrix, which is Drupal, and going to a dense matrix. And yeah, that step, and if you solidify and unify that objects and actions used and the grammar, that could in the next step inform basically the information architecture as well. So that is basically the point I try to make.
So I see the screenshot Slack, but I can't seem to find the folder where, or can't seem to load it in my browser.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, then let's move on. And
oh, maybe this will do it. Ha!
ah,
Okay. Ah! What happened? All right, I'm almost there.
we already
And,
see.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so the point of this is that if you have more options in a sparse matrix, that it starts off a little bit slower, but pretty quickly becomes more usable. Is that roughly what these graphs are suggesting?
No, the graph means the cognitive load rises the more functionality you have.
Ah,
Because you
so,
have different
oh,
concepts, ambiguity, and different ways the same thing is addressed, and it's not clear if people are in discussions. And in the dense matrix, everything is solidified, and the cognitive load is way lower.
okay. So the vertical axis is cognitive load, which is a
Yeah,
bad thing. So rising quickly is a bad thing.
yeah.
And you'd like to keep cognitive load linear or sublinear as a function of functionality. Okay. Um,
Emma had her hand up.
I was gonna ask, did we have a goal for where we wanted to get to today? Because it feels like I think we're all aligned that things could change to make processes less confusing and less complex for new people who are new to Drupal. But reiterating a point that's already been made, this is not this is not something that's going to be fixed with changes in an issue. So I wasn't clear because I missed the start of the meeting. I wasn't sure if we had a goal for what we wanted to achieve today in terms of next steps.
right. We haven't discussed that. And I think next steps is the key. So, so first of all, what I told Christina and Larry at Florida Drupal Camp was not my decision, but my opinion of where the group would like to go is that there is a lot of interest in this group for doing a lot of discussion, investigation, exploration in this topic. So I should validate that and ask the regulars if I read that correctly. And I think the goal of the current meeting should be to decide on those next steps, to decide on a structure of where we go from here over the next few weeks and several months. So first of all, from the regulars, Ralph, Simo, Thomas, Aaron, am I right that this is something that we would like to spend a lot of time on? I'm getting some thumbs up from Aaron and Simo and from Ralph. Okay. Um, yeah, so I was pretty confident of that, but it's good to validate. Go ahead, Thomas.
So I have two concerns. The first concern is an effort of this size would come at the cost of being able to address issues in Drupal core and continue to do the work we have done. So I think the newer, broader mandate sounds awesome, but it will come at a cost. And it's important that we acknowledge that because that will build over time, creating technical debt, because there won't be people necessarily with the time and energy to address the things we have been doing. And the second thing is I'm still concerned about making progress with language because I feel like it's not shiny and it's not attractive and it doesn't get the attention that it needs. But if we don't fix the language, you can keep on having big discussions about how to make things perfect, but we're not using something that invites beginners to actually get into the system. And if that's ostensibly the goal, I feel like we need to fix A before we go on to B. And that's it.
Okay, you're getting thumbs up from Ralph. So you suggest fixing the terminology, or at least making progress on that before working on the admin interface? Or is that overstating?
I don't think I have a strong enough opinion on, and like it's not absolute, but I just I don't think the community at large is ever going to be super excited and engaged in the language because the advanced people already know it and the new people don't know that they don't know it. And it's going to have to be a kind of command decision from the top to prioritize it to get it done. Otherwise, the debt related to language will persist no matter what we do to change the admin interface.
Yeah, and I know that's something that you and Ralph and Emma have spent a lot of time on. I went to Emma's session at DrupalCon Barcelona on the Drupalisms. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. I think I remember the thing I was going to say earlier. And it was actually I think it was coming back to the thing that Christina was touching on near the start of the meeting when I joined, which is around the I guess it's the role that Experience Builder has, and it's the reason I mentioned like Wix and Squarespace and things, because Experience Builder is one of its aims, I suppose, is to compete with those platforms, right? But the thing that those platforms do really well is they started from that position, and so they've been able to build things on new features within that context of this is a visual page editor, right? In Drupal, we haven't started from that context, and it feels like with Experience Builder, we're starting something new from that context, but we've got all of this existing admin interface, and so I guess my concern, and I wonder if Christina could maybe speak to this a bit because I'm interested in her thoughts on this, is with whether that's a transition or a long-term goal, like it feels like we're going to have two very different admin UIs that exist in parallel. One is the admin UI we have now, and one is Experience Builder. And that concerns me a bit because I think that's in some ways is almost counterintuitive, because I think it's going to make it even more harder to navigate, because you think, okay, I can do some tasks in this admin UI, which is an Experience Builder, and some tasks in this admin UI, which is the Drupal one. And that, to me, feels like a very confusing experience, but I'm really interested in what Christina thinks about that.
And you get a thumbs up from Ralph on that. Christina, do you want to reply to that before we go on to Simo?
Sure. Actually, that goes direct related to what I was going to say 10 minutes ago. We basically have a UI that is going to completely change. The admin interface for Drupal, it's going to completely change with Experience Builder. Right now, a lot of people has in their head that Experience Builder, it's only going to live in the edit screen from a node, and that's not true. Experience Builder is actually taking over a huge part of the admin interface, and probably the only parts that are not going to be eaten by the Experience Builder interface. It's the configuration or some parts of the configuration page and the extend section. So taking that into account, we need to be smart in terms of where we invest our time. And related to that, it's we have same time constraints in here, and Experience Builder, it's like around the corner. In September, Experience Builder is here. October, September, August, I'm not sure. But then it's going, we need to have this solved. And when I say this is the information architecture. And what I said at the beginning of the call that you, Emma, weren't there, is that we have a problem that we need to solve. We identified the problem with a test that we had in the past and the test the Experience Builder people has run, and the test that we're going to run in the next weeks. This is probably going to happen too, is that we have these specific pain points that this is the main driving discussion, or the main driver for this whole effort. And this whole effort is going to try to make easier to navigate through the admin interface. And it's not the only thing that should help that happen. Obviously, there's like the Drupalisms and the different language changes, and that one thing doesn't take away the other. It's just that they are parallel efforts that they need to happen. We don't have time to wait to fix all the UX copyright or the labels that we have in Drupal, and wait until we fix all that, and then we go and change the information architecture. This needs to happen at the same time. Then it's not only information architecture and the language problem, it's also the UX itself problem, the how we change the UI, the workflow. And it means like completely changing the pages that we have nowadays. I'm talking about getting rid completely of the display modes page and integrating that in Experience Builder, which is the thing that I was saying at the beginning. So this is, for solving this, it's necessary to have some to take some steps back, and as Emma was saying, to have like a zoomed out perspective for all this. And what I was asking to the group, which is what was discussed in Florida with Laurie and Benji, was that if you wanted, so Benji said that you don't have capacity to do user tests, to do user research, as it's usually considered user research. So you basically come here and discuss these issues. And we said, okay, so you want to be involved in that because you've had interest over the years on all these things. We would like to ask you, could you come up with a proposal that makes sense for you? And then we go and test it. And we, on the UX team, on the UX research team, or the UI team and the design team, we do an take from there. We test your proposal and all this thing. And that's the whole point, or the next step that we were expecting from the meeting.
Okay, you got a thumbs up earlier from Emma, and Ralph just gave you a thumbs up now. Simo, we have about 10 minutes left. So what do you want to say?
Yeah, I was thinking about this language and term issues. So basically, our primary goal is to reduce the number of terms the user needs to know. I think that's one of the primary goals. So we don't need to have all the terms correct, because we want to kind of push them a bit aside so that the person will understand the will kind of easily learn the concepts without using specific words. So that was just an idea that the terminology might be something that's not in the center of everything. It's important in the long run, but not initially.
Okay. And you did put a comment in that I haven't had a chance to read, comparing Drupal to PowerPoint. You pointed out that there are a lot of things that both Drupal and PowerPoint do using different terms. And in both systems, there are a lot of things that people don't know they don't know. So for next steps, Christina, is there anything more recent than Larry's presentation at Florida Drupal Camp for what Experience Builder is going to be doing and how it's going to be taking over things?
Um, no, the thing is that we need, so Laurie has had some proposals that he mentioned at Florida Drupal Camp. I don't recall all of them, but he was like talking about breaking up the structure completely and dividing it into several places, but I don't recall it right now. So the idea would be to come up with a proposal for this reorganization of the main information architecture. And just wanted to make it clear that it's okay if you want to focus on other things. We can, like with Emma, this is something that we will take on, and Laurie, this is a priority for us. So if you don't have time, that's super fine. Don't worry at all. I don't want to put pressure on you. I just want to make sure that we are aware of the time constraints that we have, so we can discuss this for months. And we need to have a proposal to probably test it, like, I don't know, June, for saying like the latest, to start doing user tests on that. So if the group doesn't have time to work on a proposal, that's perfectly fine. We can do that. We've done that in the past. That's part of our job. So it's okay, whatever you prefer to do.
Okay, so I think that for next steps, we need a few things. Um, First, if the changes are largely driven by Experience Builder, then we need to understand what constraints that creates.
No, that's not Experience Builder. The problem is already in Drupal itself, the way the information architecture is organized right now. The pain points are coming from there. And Experience Builder is adding more on top of that. Experience Builder, what it's setting is the deadline to getting something done, not the problem. It's not bringing the problem in. It was already there.
Um, if the plan is to remove entire configuration pages, then we need to know that in order to understand the problem. And the second thing we need to do, if you want to take a more structured, user-focused approach, we'd like to see some of the results of the user testing. If you've done work with people who are new to Drupal and seen what they try to do, then we'd like to see some of that so that we have a better feel for the problem that we're trying to discuss. Until we have a little more of that structure, it's just sort of a wide open restructure the admin interface. That's not focused enough. You put a couple of things in the chat, Christina. Known pain points that users need to navigate between content structure and configuration to achieve a single task. So I think it would help to focus the discussion if we had a Drupal.org issue, maybe in the ideas queue, maybe somewhere else, sort of trying to define the problem we're trying to solve, figure out what the parameters are, give us a place to leave notes in between meetings. Ralph asks in the chat if the user tests will be recorded. Will the research repo be built, research repository? And Aaron, what do you want to say?
Thanks. Yeah, just on that point you mentioned about an issue like the issue that I'd linked in ideas queue earlier, the one I'd opened about additional methods of navigating the admin UI, was intentionally open-ended because at the time whether it was myself or I opened issues, I don't remember exactly, but I recognized that the challenge that we were talking about here is that like you've got this hierarchy, but that hierarchy is not always, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not helpful. And so what could those other ways of navigating around look like, which is exactly, I think, what we're talking about here. It's like making it easier to get to all of these different bits. And so the issue doesn't assume that the hierarchy is going to continue to exist in its current form. And so maybe that is a good issue to just coordinate around or use, because the whole point of it was to see how could we move away, what could we do to like provide alternative ways that don't involve the hierarchy, basically, that we have right now. So that's potentially a good issue to use.
Okay, so we don't need a new issue. We could start. This is the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Providing additional methods for navigating the admin interface. Emma?
Just to pick up on Ralph's question, which I see Christina's already replied to. So we're a very early stage of this. So we're not going to have research to share. You know, with discovery research, a lot of that research will be understanding what we don't know. So it will be informing further research. So I don't want to raise expectations for this group that we will come with problems presented for you to solve it. In reality, getting these user tests with the right people to understand the problems and then that prioritization against the direction of Drupal is a bigger piece of work. So to Christina's point, we don't want to be a blocker for this group continuing to discuss issues that you have. In terms of waiting for us to deliver this is a bigger piece of work. We have yet to set up the groups, to recruit participants. Many things need to happen. So in my head, we're a long way off presenting problems for this group to get hold of in the way that things usually work in this group, to be able to address them. So it's just to set that expectation up. And, you know, Christina and I are beginning this as a UX piece of work, which is changing things in Drupal as well. But we're two of us, and we have many more people to bring in from the UX side. So yeah, it's just to make that point, I guess. And yeah, Christina's right. We will aim to produce reports of findings rather than share data from raw recordings, because that itself will need processing. Sorry, I realize we're nearly out of time.
Yeah. So I think also it would help to have sort of, as you're designing a user test, if you tell us what the tasks you're going to give to the new users are, that would help, focus our thinking, and we could try to come up with things that would make those tasks easier. Of course, we're hobbled by the fact that we know the system so well, but we can do our best to imagine the new user as we come up with proposals. We are
Just
nearly at
on
the end
that,
of.
Benji, sorry to interrupt, but that's exactly what I struggle with and exactly why I don't want to bias any testing. So please don't take that as not asking for the help, but it's just that the specialist Drupal help would come further down the line when it comes to gathering that new user perspective. So just to make that point, thank you.
Okay. Any other last words? Okay.
I added a comment, like trying to figure out what we're looking at here. So if there is the vector drawing program and you can draw a box with it, then you click the box and you have these scaling arrows to change it. And then if you click it again, the same box will, the scaling arrows will turn into rotation arrows. So that's kind of a same workspace, but different actions. So that would be something like, in a kind of very compact way, something we are looking at maybe here.
And so you're thinking of that as an analogy for editing content, editing display, the various things we do in Drupal,
Yeah.
that you have some sort of visual thing and you're activating different sorts of actions on it. Okay. We are a little bit over time. Thank you all for coming. And I'll be doing this meeting next week from the New Jersey Drupal camp.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
all.
nice weekend.
Yep. This weekend.